Plant Kingdom Part 2. First, let's do a notes revision. Plant Kingdom, the first topic under Plant Kingdom is the classifications. The first classification is artificial classification. This is used gross morphological character structure of Andrecium, through which they separated few closely related species. They gave equal weightage to both sexual and vegetative characters. This is the limitations. The above is unacceptable, which is giving equal weightage to both sexual and vegetative characters. This is unacceptable because vegetative characters are more easily influenced by the surrounding environment. A natural classification system, the second classification system. They used affinity in organisms. They used not only external structures but also anatomy, ultrastructure, embryology, phytochemistry, etc. This was given by George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. The third one is phylogenetic classification based on evolutionary relationships of organisms, meaning the organisms under a taxa are having a common ancestor. We use a number of other sources too for classification, like numerical taxonomy, giving specific number and code for all observable characters in an organisms. Doing this, we consider hundreds of different characters and classify by matching the characters, now done through computers. There is cytotaxonomy, observe the cell cytology like chromosomal number, structure and behavior, etc. There is chromotaxonomy based on various chemical constituents of the plants. Algae, Thallophyta, simple thalloid autotrophic organisms, largely aquatic, found mostly on moist stones, wood as lichen, and on animals, example sloth bear, can exist as colonial form, example volvox, filamentous forms, Spirogyra and Eulothrix. Kelp has a very large plant body. Reproduction in algae. Vegetative is through fragmentation, where body divides to give rise to new thallus. Asexual reproduction, this is done through flagellated zoospores, which germinate to give rise to new plants. Sexual reproduction, fusion of gametes. Isogamous, example Eulothrix and Spirogyra. Two motile Eulothrix or non-motile Spirogyra, identical gametes fuse. Motile is Eulothrix and non-motile isogamous gametes are Spirogyra. Angiosperms, anisogamous, it is Eudorina. There are two non-identical gametes which fuse. Oogamous, volvox and fucus, where a motile and small male gamete fuses with a large and non-motile female gamete. Uses of algae fix an approximation of 50% of all carbon dioxide of the atmosphere. Up to 70 species of the algae, including Porifera, Sargassum and Laminaria, are used as primary food source for aquatic animals. They provide oxygen for the surrounding environment. Certain marine brown and red algae produce large amounts of hydrocolloid water holding substances. That is example algin produced by brown algae, which is on the outer cell of the acting as a gelatinous cover for brown algae, and carrageen for red algae. Agar, this is a commercial product prepared by certain red algae of Gelidium and Gracilaria, used in preparing microbe cultures, preparing jellies and ice creams. Chlorella, a unicellular algae which is rich in nutrients and proteins. It is taken as tablets or protein supplements or nutrient supplement for space travelers. There is the first division under algae, which is green algae. Green algae is called Chlorophyaceae. This is found in freshwater mediums, may be colonial, filamentous or unicellular. Grass green in color due to chlorophyll A and B pigments. Pigments enclosed in a definite chloroplast of different shapes of ribbon-like, discoid, plate, reticulate, etc. They store starch and protein in form of pyrenoids. There may be one or more pyrenoids. Some also store food in form of oil droplets. Green algae usually have a rigid cell wall made of cellulose and a pectose outer cell wall. Flagella for the spores number from 2 to 8. They are apical and they are equal in length. Reproduction, vegetative fragmentation. Vegetative reproduction is through fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is through flagellated zoospores produced in zoosporangia. Sexual reproduction is through isogamous, anoisogamous or oogamous. Examples, Chara volvox, Spirogyra eulothrix, Chlamydomonas. Next is Phyophyceae, brown algae. found mostly in marine water, can show many forms like simple and profusely branched like ectocarpus, hundreds of meters in height, example kelps. They possess chlorophyll A and C, carotenoids, xanthophylls, fucoxanthin, etc. The amount of pigments determines its color, which can vary from olive green to brown shades. Food is stored as complex carbohydrates such as mannitol and laminarin. Cell is having a cellulosic cell wall covered by a gelatinous layer of algin. Cell has plastids, centrally large vacuole, nucleus, and other organelles. The plant body has a holdfast to adjust to the substratum and stalk-like stipe and a leafy photosynthetic frond. Production vegetative, it is through fragmentation. Asexual, asexual is through biflagellate zoospores, which are pear-shaped, having two unequal laterally attached flagella. Sexual reproduction, it is all iso. It can be iso, aniso, and oogamous, and fusion may be in water or oogonium. The gametes are biflagellate, pyriform, pear-shaped, and have lateral flagella. Examples are Dictyota, sargassum, Laminaria, fucus, and Ectocarpus, kelp, etc. Rhodophyceae, red algae, mostly marine. Cell wall made up of cellulose, pectin, polysulfate esters. Okay, pigments found are R-phycoerythrin, give body red color, chlorophyll A and D. We can find red algae in warmer areas of water bodies. They can found in shallow regions and even in great depths of the ocean. Mostly multicellular organisms with some having complex body structure. Food is stored as Floridian starch. Floridian starch is similar in structure to amylopectin and glycogen. Reproduction is vegetative reproduction is through fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is through non-motile spores. Sexual reproduction, also non-motile gametes. These fused, mostly all are oogamous, followed by complex developmental stages. Examples are Porifera, Polysyphonia, Gracilaria, and Geridium, etc. Next division under the plant kingdom is Bryophyta after the Thallophyta. Bryophyta divided into mosses and liverworts. Grow in shaded, moist, and hilly areas. They are called the amphibians of the plant kingdom because the plants are on soil but depend on water for reproduction. The plant body is more differentiated than that of algae. The body can be erect or prostrated. The body can have unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. They lack two roots, stem, and leaf. Main plant body is haploid. It produces gametes called gametophyte, and male is antheridium. The male sex organ is antheridium. They produce motile biflagellate antherozoids. Female sex organ is archegonium. It is flask shaped, produce a single egg cell. The gametes, male will come in contact with archegonium and fuse with egg to form a zygote. Zygote doesn't immediately undergo reduction division but forms a multicellular structure called sporophyte. The cells of the sporophyte undergo meiosis to form haploid spores. Spores germinate to give gametophyte. The sporophyte is dependent on the gametophyte for nourishment. Reproductive flowchart: antherozoid male motile gamete will fuse with egg, which form a zygote. Zygote will develop into a sporophyte. Sporophyte will give spores. Spores will give gametophyte. Gametophyte will give antherozoids and egg. Depend on water for reproduction. Uses for Bryophyta: not much economic importance but great ecological importance. Food for herbaceous mammals, birds, and other animals. Sphagnum gives peat. Peat used for fuel, used in transport of living materials because of capacity to hold water. Mosses and lichens are the first organisms to colonize rocks, so they have great ecological importance. Form dense mats on soil, prevent soil erosion. Liverworts, under bryophytes, grow in damp, moist regions like banks of a stream, bark of a tree, deep in the woods, marshy ground, etc. The body is dorsoventrally flat and is oppressed to the substrate. For leafy individuals, two rows of leafy appendages on the stem like structure are present. reproduction. Asexual, it is fragmentation. And there is also gemme formation. Gemme are asexual multicellular buds. Gemme later develop into receptacles called gemme cups. Gemme cups detach from the body to form individual organisms. Sexual reproduction, it is through antheridium and archegonium. Either both or individual sex organs are formed on the body. Sporophyte stage containing foot, seta, and capsule are formed. Haploid spores are produced which germinate into new organisms. Gametophyte plant body. Example, Markantia. Mosses. The predominant stage of mosses is the gametophyte. The gametophyte is again divided into two stages, protonema and leafy stage. Protonema, a creeping green branched and often filamentous stage. The lateral buds on the protonema stage give rise to the leafy stage. And leafy stage, a stage of upright, axially arranged, spirally arranged leaves or spirally arranged leaves. Presence of multicellular rhizoids. The leafy stage bears sex organs, that is antheridia and archegonia. A fusion of gametes leads to zygote formation. Zygote forms sporophyte. Sporophyte produces spores. Spores germinate into the new plant body. A vegetative reproduction in mosses is by fragmentation, and for protonema it is via budding. The sporophyte of mosses is more elaborate than liverworts. The mechanism of dispersal of spore is also more elaborate than mosses. Example, Funaria, Polytrichum, and Sphagnum. Next is pteridophytes, vascular plants divided into horsetails and ferns. Uses of pteridophytes used for medicinal purposes, act as soil binders, prevent soil erosion, used as ornamental plants. They are the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular system. Xylem and phloem or tissue grow found in cool, damp and shady places or even in sandy soil conditions. The dominant phase of the plant life is the sporophyte stage. They possess well differentiated stem, leaf and roots, true plant organs, vascular tissue spread through all of them. The leaves can be microphylls, small leaves, example Selaginella, macrophylls, large leaf, example fern. The plants have special leaves bearing sporangia, spore producing organ, are called sporophylls. The sporophylls may be identical to normal leaves or form distinct compact structure called strobilus. Which are cones. The sporangia produce spores from the spore mother cells called cells which divide meiotically. Spores then germinate to give rise to small inconspicuous multicellular gametophyte called the prothallus. These prothallus are thalloid and photosynthetic. The prothallus in case of homosporic plants bear both male and female sex organs. Although they prefer sexual reproduction, this is an assurance in case there is no cross-fertilization happening. These prothallus require cool, damp and shady places, and the fertilization is depending on water. Due to these restrictions of the pteridophytes are generally found only in specific geographical regions. After fertilization, antherozoid plus eggs will give rise to zygote. Zygote is developed into a mature saurophyte, the dominant plant phase. In majority of pteridophytes are homospores. Homospores produce some kind of spores, same kind of spores, meaning or basically one kind of spores. These are plants which produce two kinds of spores. Okay, there are two types. There are homosporous, which produce only a single type of spore, and heterosporous plant which produce two types of spores called micro and megaspores, giving rise to male and female gametophytes respectively. These plant producing two kinds of spores are called heterosporous, example Selaginella and Salvinia. Speciality of female gametophyte: the female gametophyte is not detached from the parent body for an invariable amount of time till fertilization and until after the zygote formation. This speciality is important as it is the precursor to the evolution of seed habit. Classes under pteridophytes are Celopsida, example is Celotum; Lycopsida, example is Selagina and Lycopodium; Sphenopsida, example Equisetum; and Pteropsida, example Draperis adiantum. Pteris also. Now let's start with the next main topic, that is gymnosperms. Gymnosperms. Naked seed. Okay. Pteridophytes. Not pteridophytes. Gymnosperms. The gymnosperms, gymnos meaning naked, sperma meaning seeds, are plants which the ovules are not enclosed by any ovary wall and remain exposed both before and after fertilization. They will remain exposed. The seeds that develop post fertilization are not covered, that is naked. The seeds that develop after fertilization are not covered, that is naked. Gymnosperms include medium-sized trees or tall trees and shrubs. One of the gymnosperm, the giant redwood tree, let's see how to pronounce it.
Sequoia.
Sequoia, the giant redwood trees, Sequoia is one of the tallest tree species. The roots are generally tap roots. Roots in some genera have fungal association in the form of mycorrhiza, pinus, while in some other cycads, small specialized roots called coralloid roots are associated with N2 fixing cyanobacteria. The stems are unbranched, cycads or branched, pinus and cedrus. The leaves may be simple or compound. In cycads, the pinnate leaves persist for a few years. The leaves in gymnosperms are well adapted to withstand extreme temperatures, humidity, wind. In conifers, the needle-like leaves reduce the surface area. Their thick cuticle and sunken stomata also help reduce the water loss. The gymnosperms are heterosporous. They produce haploid microspores and megaspores. The two kinds of spores are produced within sporangia that are borne on sporophylls, which are arranged spirally along an axis to form lax or compact stabili or cone. The two kinds of spores are produced within sporangia that are borne on sporophylls, which are arranged spirally along the axis to form lax or compact stabili or cones. The stabili bearing microsporophylls and microsporangia are called microsporangiate or male stabili. The microspores develop into a male gametophyte generation, which is highly reduced and is confined to only a limited number of cells. Microspores develop into a male gametophyte generation, which is highly reduced and is confined to only a limit of cell. This reduced gametophyte is called a pollen grain. The development of pollen grain takes place within the microsporangia. The cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules or megasporangia are called macrosporangiate or female strobili. That is, from here the development of pollen grains takes place in the microsporangium. Next is macrosporophylls, which with ovules or megasporangia are called macrosporangiate or female cones bearing ovules. The male or female cones or strobili may be born on the same tree, Pinus, where the tree is bisexual. However, in cycas, male cones and megasporophylls are born on different trees. The megaspore mother cell is differentiated from one of the cells of the nucellus. Basically, the megaspore mother cell is differentiated from one of the cells of the nucellus. Megaspore mother cell will give rise to the megaspore, and it is formed from the nucellus. The nucellus is protected by envelopes and composite structure called an ovule. The ovules are born on megasporophylls, which may be clustered to form the female cones. The megaspore mother cell divide meiotically to form 4 megaspores. One of the megaspores enclosed within the megasporangium develops into a female multicellular gametophyte that bears 2 or more archegonia or female sex organs. The multicellular female gametophyte is also retained within the megasporangium. Multicellular female gametophyte is retained within the megasporangium. Unlike bryophytes and pteridophytes, in gymnosperms, the male and female gametophytes do not have an independent free-living existence. Unlike bryophytes and pteridophytes, the male and female gametophytes do not have an independent free-living existence. They remain within the sporangia retained on the sporophytes. The pollen grain is released from the microsporangium. They are carried in air currents and some in contact with opening of the ovules born on megasporophylls. The pollen tube carrying the male gametes grows towards archegonia in the ovules and discharge their contents near the mouth of the archegonia. Following fertilization, zygote developed into embryo and the ovule into seeds. These seeds are not covered. That is with gymnosperms. Let's see the diagrams. Gymnosperm A is cycas, B is pinus, and C is ginkgo. Cycas, pinus, and ginkgo, where they showed here seeds, long shoot, dwarf shoot as well. Okay, let's read the given information again. First information, the gymnosperms are naked seeds, plants where the ovules are not enclosed by any ovary wall and remain exposed both before and after fertilization. The seeds that develop post fertilization are not covered, that is naked. That is the first information. Second information is gymnosperm include medium size. The structure of the trees they are saying, it can include medium size shrubs and very tall trees. Example they gave is the sequoia trees, the giant redwood tree, which is one of the tallest tree species, reaching 80 to 100 meters in length. The roots are generally tap roots. They gave the third information is roots. About root structure, roots are generally tap roots. Roots in some genera have a fungal association in the form of mycorrhiza. Pinus roots have fungal association, that is called mycorrhiza in case of pinus if we see, while in case of other plants, cycas, small specialized roots called coralloid roots are associated with N2 fixing cyanobacteria. One, it can have association with fungus, which is called mycorrhiza. This is seen in pinus, and in case of cycas, there are specialized root structures which help in N2 fixation, and these root specialized structures are called coralloids, coralloid roots associated with N2 fixing cyanobacteria. Next information is the stems are unbranched or branched. Basically, structure morphology they're saying. The stems in cycas they are unbranched. The stems in Pinus cedrus are branched. The leaves may be simple or compound. The next information was about the leaves may be simple or compound. In cycas, the pinnate leaves persist for a few years, a characteristics in cycas. The leaves in gymnosperm are well adapted to withstand extremes of temperature, humidity, and wind. In conifers, the needle-like leaves reduce the surface area. Their thick cuticles, sunken stomata also help water loss, basically water loss prevention. And next information is the gymnosperms are heterosporous. They produce haploid microspores and megaspores. The two kind of spores are produced within sporangia that are borne on sporophylls, which are arranged spirally along an axis to form lax or compact straw-like cones. Sporangia like form cones like sporophylls, which are arranged into axis to form lax or compact straw-like cones. The strobili bearing microsporophylls and microsporangia are called microsporangiate or male strobili. Basically, the sporophylls, the leaves which have the males or microsporangia are called microsporophylls or the male strobili or male cone. The microspores develop into a male gametophyte generation which is highly reduced as is and is confined to only a limited number of cells. Basically, this male gametophyte is highly reduced and is confined to a limited number of cells. The cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules or megasporangia are called megasporangiate or female strobili. And just before I skipped a line, that is the male gametophyte is called as a pollen grain. The development of pollen grain takes place within the microsporangia. The cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules or megasporangia are called macrosporangiate or female strobili. The male or female cones or strobili may be borne on same tree. The plants may be bisexual like Pinus or monosexual like Cycas. Male cones and megasporophylls are born in different trees in case of Cycas. The megaspore mother cell is differentiated from one of the cells of the nucellus. Microspore mother cell gives rise to microspore, which is called the pollen grain, and megaspore mother cell, which is formed from the nucellus, will give rise to the megaspore. The nucellus is protected by envelopes and the composite structure is called ovule. The nucellus is covered by envelopes. That whole structure is what we call as a ovule. The ovules are borne on megasporophylls, which may be clustered to form female cones. The ovules, they're basically saying these ovules are borne on megasporophylls, which may be clustered, aggregated to form female cones. The megaspore mother cells divide meiotically to form 4 megaspore. One of the megaspores enclosed within the megasporangium develops into a multicellular female gametophytes that bears 2 or more archegonia or female sex organs. The multicellular female gametophyte is also retained within the megasporangium itself. Unlike bryophytes and pteridophytes in gymnosperms, the male and the female gametophytes do not have an independent free living existence. They are retained within the sporangia. On the sporophylls, the pollen grain is released from the microsporangium. They are carried in air currents and some in contact with opening of the ovules borne on megasporophylls. The pollen tube carrying the male gametes grow towards the archegonia in the ovules and discharge their content near the mouth of the archegonia. Following fertilization, zygote develops into embryo and ovules into seeds. These seeds are not covered. That is gymnosperms. Okay, let's start writing. This first point, the seeds both before and after fertilization remain exposed, naked, so called gymnosperms. That is the first information. Next information is the tree size. The plants may be middle, medium, tall shrubs or even tall trees. Example, Sequoia, great redwood tree, growing from I think 60 to 100 or something like that, or 80 to 100 meters. Largest, one of the largest plant species. That is about plant size. The roots. Next is root information. Roots are generally tap roots. We can see association of these roots with fungi called mycorrhiza. This is example is spinous. Or the roots may contain coralloid water holding, I think. They didn't mention it is water holding, so structures which have association with N2 fixing bacteria, example, actually it is cyanobacteria, cycas. That is information about roots. Then I think is the next is leaves. The stems are unbranched, example cycas, and are branched in case of pinus and cedrus. As for the next information, it's about leaves. The leaves may be simple or compound, and in cycas the leaves remain persistent for many years. Together it is pinnate leaves. Next is about sizes. No, wait, not about sizes. The leaves of gymnosperms are well adapted to withstand extreme of temperature, humidity, and wind. Leaves of gymnosperms are well adapted to withstand extreme temperatures, humidity, wind, etc. In conifers, there are needle-like leaves which having less surface area, reduce water loss by transpiration, and they have a thick cuticle. Cuticle is a waxy layer. Sunken stomata. Sunken stomata, and I think that was the characteristics. Basically, they're saying these as well help reduce or avoid water loss. This is about leaves. And these, the heterosporas, they produce haploid micro and megaspores. Two kinds of spores are produced within sporangia that are borne on sporophylls, which are arranged spirally. They are all mostly heterosporous, meaning they all produce two kinds of spores, two kinds of haploid spores, which is micro or mega or macro. The sporophyll bearing the spore producing sporangia are arranged spirally in an axis to form lax, loose or compact cone-like structures. Basically, strobilus. Or cones also we can say. The strobili bearing microsporophylls and megasporophylls are called microsporangiate or male strobili. Okay, this is basically information about the microsporophyll. Male, the strobili bearing microsporangia are called male strobilus or male cone. The microspores develop into amalgam into 5th generation. which is generally reduced and confined to a limited number of cells. The male gametophyte is formed from the spore and generally is very reduced and is confined to only a limited and is confined to only a limited number of cells. This reduced male gametophyte is called pollen grain. Okay, the development of pollen grain takes place within the microsporangia. The development of pollen grain takes place in the microsporangia. More information is given below. The ovary is also on the unlike bryophytes and pteridophytes, in gymnosperms, the male and female gametophyte do not have independent feeling existence. They remain within the as in gymnosperms there are no free living gametophytes. Pollen grains are retained in the microsporangia they are dispersed in wind currents to move passively and when pollination happens. The male gamete consisting the pollen grain, male gamete pollen grain, grows towards the archegonium and discharges its contents at the mouth of archegonium okay. Let's come to the megaspore development. Okay, the cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules or megasporangia are called megasporangiate or female strobili. The sporophylls this is okay. The cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules / megasporangia are called female cones or macrosporangiate. I will write this part again. However, inside, okay, the megaspore mother cells is differentiated from the one of the cells of the nucellus. The megaspore mother cell is differentiated from cells of the nucellus. The nucellus is protected by nucellus is basically a nutrient rich cells which are present inside the ovule. Envelopes, and the total structure is called ovule. The ovules are borne on megasporophylls which may be clustered to form the female cones. The ovule ovules are born on megasporophylls, which may be clustered to form the female cones. Or they can be loose as well. This is actually a repeat information, but fine. Ovules are born on the, which may be clustered into form. Ovules are born on megasporophylls, which may be clustered to form female cones. The megaspore, okay. The megaspore mother cell divides meiotically to give 4 haploid megaspores. One of the megaspores enclosed within the megasporangium. One of the megaspores enclosed within the megasporangium develops to form a female, a multicellular. Based on this everything, it is actually a repeat in the second PUC or 12th standard first chapter, biology first chapter, which is sexual reproduction in angiospermic or flowering plants. It is actually that process they are once again giving here. Actually, it's not once again, it is actually the first time for this is the 11th standard textbook. They did not introduce it here, but this one of the megaspores from the 4 megaspores forming into a megasporangium develops to form a multicellular gametophyte. This is actually what we call a monosporic development. Let's continue. Multicellular. Female gametophyte. That bears 2 or more archegonia or female sex organs. That bears 2 or more archegonia, female sex organ. This, the multicellular female gametophyte, is also retained in the sporophyll or cone. I think cone and sporophyll are different, retained within the not sporophyll but megasporangium. Now the next topic is about the plants may have both the cones, both the female, male and female organs in the same plant. Example, it is, I think, pinus. Example, pinus, and the plants may have only one kind of sexual organ in the plant. Example, cycas. The last point is pollen grain plus ovule fertilization followed by zygote formation, embryo formation, and embryo to seed, I believe. Embryo, ovule to seeds, to naked seeds. This is completing the gymnosperms topic. As for a quick revision of the topic, it is gymnosperms, naked seed plants. The seeds both before and after fertilization remain exposed naked, so called gymnosperms. The plants may be medium tall shrubs or even tall trees. Example, great redwood tree, one of the largest plant species. Roots are generally tap roots. We can see association of these roots with fungi called mycorrhiza. Pinus, example, the roots may contain coralloid structures which have association with nitrogen fixing bacteria, the cyanobacteria. Example, cycas. The stems are unbranched, cycas, and branched in case of pinus and cetrus. The leaves may be simple or compound. In cycas, the pinnate leaves remain persistent for many years. The leaves of the gymnosperms are well adapted to withstand extreme temperatures, humidity, wind, and etc. In conifers, there are needle-like leaves which have less surface area, reduce water loss. They also have thick cuticles, sunken stomata. These as well reduce and avoid water loss. They all are mostly heterosporous, meaning they all produce two kinds of haploid spores, micro and mega. The sporophylls bearing the spore-producing sporangia are arranged virally in axis to form loose or compact cones-like structures that are called strobilus or cones. Male, the strobilus bearing female sporangia, microsporangia, are called the male strobilus or the male cone. The male gametophyte is formed from the spore and generally is very reduced and is confined to only a limited number of cells. This reduced male gametophyte is called a pollen grain. The development of pollen grain takes place in the microsporangia As in gymnosperms, there are no free living gametophytes. Pollen grains are retained in the microsporangia. They are dispersed in wind currents to move passively. When pollination happens, the male gamete pollen grain grows towards the archegonium and discharges its contents at the mouth of the archegonium. The female, the cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules megasporangia are called female cones macrosporangiate. The megaspore mother cell is differentiated from cells of the nucellus. The nucellus is protected by envelopes and the total structure is called ovule. Ovules are borne on megasporophylls which may be clustered to form female cones. The megaspore mother cell divides meiotically to give rise to 4 spores, but only one of the spores is enclosed within the megasporangium, and this spore develops to form a multicellular female gametophyte that bears 2 or more archegonia. The multicellular female gametophyte is also retained in the megasporangium. Multicellular female gametophyte. Okay, yes. The plants may have both the male or female organs bisexual in the same plant, where example is pinus, and the example have only one sex organ in the plant is cycas. Pollen grain plus ovule will give fertilization. Fertilization gives zygote. Zygote develops into embryo, and embryo forms ovules. Ovules to naked seeds. Next topic is about angiosperms. Let's use blue here. Angiosperms, covered seed. Okay then. Angiosperms. Unlike the gymnosperms where the ovules were naked, in the angiosperms or flowering plants, the pollen grains and ovules are developed in specialized structure called flowers. In angiosperms, the seeds are enclosed in fruits. The angiosperms are an exceptionally large group of plants occurring in wide range of habitats. They range in size from the smallest wolfia to the tall trees of eucalyptus over hundreds of meters. They provide us with food, fodder, fuel, medicines, and several other commercially important products. They are divided into 2 classes, the dicotyledons and the monocotyledons. Dicotyledon meaning the seed has, wait, that's all? Yes, that's all. Basically, the angiosperms is a very large group, and giving this in the plant kingdom is not really possible, and we will be able to learn more about angiospermic plants in the next 2 chapters, morphology, anatomy, as well as in a little in plant physiology. All of them are in about angiospermic and mostly about angiospermic plants itself. So there is so much things given about the angiospermic plants in other chapters. So in such a case, I think they did not give much in this chapter. So only a single paragraph. A is angiosperm, a dicotyledon plant, and B is basically a grass. It's a monocotyledon. The pollen grain and ovule are developed in specialized structures called, let's use print here, flowers. angiosperms. In angiosperms, the seeds are enclosed in fruits. The angiosperms are an exceptionally large group of plants occurring in wide range of habitats. They range in size from the smallest Wolfia they are a very large group occurring in various habitats. In various habitats, they range in size from smallest Wolfia and one of the largest eucalyptus 100 meters. They are very important, divided into A monosperm and monocotyledon, B dicotyledons, examples for monocot is grass, example for dicot is mango and other fruits or other plants. Then uses of angiospermic plants. And one more thing, the angiospermic plants are also called the flowering plants. Called the flowering plants. One, food, fodder, fuel. Food, fodder, fuel, medicine, we can use for ornamental, other commercial and other commercial uses, where we saw bryophytes was the least economic importance, whereas here angiosperm is the one of the most important economic importance. With this, the chapter Plant kingdom is finished, but I will indeed read the summary. Plant kingdom includes algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Algae are chlorophyll-bearing, simple, thalloid, autotrophic, and largely aquatic organisms. Depending on the type of pigment possessed and the type of stored food, algae are classified into three classes, namely Chlorophyaceae. This is also actually important. Classification of algae includes algae, is thalloid, autotrophic, and largely. Depending on type of pigment possessed and type of stored food, algae are classified into three classes, namely Chlorophyaceae, Phaeophyceae, and Rhodophyceae. It is very important. The basis of classification of algae, it is based on pigment possessed and type of stored food. And what we don't use for classification is the cell wall composition. Algae usually reproduce by fragmentation, asexually by formation of different types of spores, and sexually by formation of gametes, which may show isogamy, anisogamy, or oogamy. Bryophytes are plants which can live in soil but are dependent on water for sexual reproduction. Their plant body is more differentiated than that of algae. It is thallus-like and prostrate or erect and attached to the substratum by rhizoids. They possess root-like, leaf-like, and stem-like structures. The bryophytes are divided into liverworts and mosses. The plant body of liverworts is thalloid and dorsiventral, whereas mosses have upright slender axis bearing spirally arranged leaves. The main plant body of a bryophyte is a gamete producing and is called a gametophyte. It bears the male sex organs called antheridia and female sex organ called archegonia. The male and female gametes produce fused to form zygote, which produces a multicellular body called a sporophyte. It produces haploid spores. The spores germinate to form gametophyte. This is the exact same copy as some of the points in the NCERT. In pteridophytes, the main plant is a sporophyte, which is differentiated into true root, stem, and leaves. These organs possess well differentiated vascular tissues. The sporophytes bear sporangia, which produce spores. The spores germinate to form gametophytes, which require cool, damp places to grow. The gametophytes bear male and female sex organs called antheridia and archegonia. Respectively, water is required for transfer of male gametes to archegonium, whereas zygote is formed after fertilization. Zygote produces a sporophyte. The gymnosperms are the plants in which ovules are not enclosed by an ovarian wall. After fertilization, the seed remains exposed, and therefore these plants are called naked seeds or naked seeded plants. The gymnosperms produce microspores and megaspores, which are produced in microsporangia and megasporangia, borne on the sporophylls. The sporophylls, microspores, and megasporophylls are arranged spirally on the axis to form male and female cones respectively. The pollen grain germinates and pollen tube releases the male gametophyte male gamete into the ovule, where it fuses with the egg cell in the archegonia. Following fertilization, zygote develops into embryo and ovules into seed. They only give two lines. Actually, it is basically only one line. The angiosperms are divided into two classes, the dicotyledons and the monocotyledons. With this, revision 1 of plant kingdom, NCERT based, is completed.